Welcome back, everybody, to the Grand Ultra Podcast. Today, we're going to have a special episode with the race directors, Colin and Tess. So, you guys both want to give yourself a little introduction, and we'll take it off from there.
Well, thank you for inviting us onto the podcast today, Derek. My name is Colin Geddes, and I'm one of the founders, and I'm co-event director of the Grand Ultra.
My name is Tess Geddes, and I'm co-founder and co-event director for the Grand Ultra. Thank you, Derek, for having us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. Like, it's gonna be fun to chat about the race, and probably we'll see your dogs a couple times, I would imagine.
Yes, hopefully they'll be well behaved.
Hopefully they'll stay quiet.
Well, if not, I think we all love dogs, so I wouldn't mind a little, I don't know, a little dog interaction here. No, let's just jump right into it, guys. Let's talk about the race because you obviously are both British. You're from the UK, anyways, I should say, in Spain currently. But the Grand Ultra is based in northern Arizona and southern Utah. So where did this idea come from for this event? Because it's a different continent and it's half a world away from where you are right now. So let's talk about kind of like the introduction of Grand.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good place to start. We were living in Whistler, Canada, the ski resort back in 2010. And that year I was actually crewing for Tess at the Keys 100 in Florida. You have a lot of time, a lot of spare time in your hands when you're actually crewing for somebody on an ultra. I was thinking while we were there that, why was there no stage race ultramarathon that takes place in America? Tess had come back from doing many stage races around the world in the Sahara, in the Atacama Desert, in Argentina, and lots of other places. And she'd always raved about stage races. And I'd always been heavily interested in sport, but I'd retired from my career in finance at the time. And I was just wondering, well, why has a stage race not happened in America? And so together, Tess and I thought about this, and with her background in sports event management, including adventure racing around the world, this is something we thought we could actually create for the American continent. So therefore, we then spent quite a lot of time doing some desktop analysis to figure out a location in North America that would actually work for the race. It had to be something with a lot of varied terrain, had to be a desert where we could actually have the heat taking part, had to have a lot of interesting features in the race, such as desert, amazing landscapes. Could it be iconic? And of course, we figured out that where could be a more iconic place than the Grand Canyon, one of the seven wonders of the natural world. So that was really where we zeroed in on the American West to hold this race.
That's really interesting, and I'm very partial to the American West. It's where I grew up and it's where I live, but it is an incredible place. And like the Grand Canyon being one of the seven wonders of the world is just jaw-dropping. And I think if you've never stood on the rim of the Grand Canyon, you really can't fathom like how big and vast it is. And then once you go down like to the river, for example, it's like, well, wow, there's a reason why it's one of the seven wonders of the world. It's just an incredible place, whether you're on the top or the bottom of it. It's mind blowing. It's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
It's very unique.
So let's talk about like your guys' connection to Kanab. You can say like you're locals, but you're kind of, I don't know what you'd call it. Like you're now locals, but at the time you weren't. So like, what is your connection to Kanab, and like what's so cool about the town? What makes it unique?
So when we decided that we would create this race, we needed a town base where we could get some local help to design a course and see what's possible, what's not possible, and at the same time get local support for logistics. So our research led us to the town of Kanab in southern Utah. And we learned that Kanab at one stage was considered one of the remotest towns in America, which meant to get to Kanab, it was before automobiles, it was a 3-day horseback ride from the nearest train station. And so we reached out to the community leaders in Kanab and had a meeting. And so we told them what we planned to do. Initially, they thought it was like, what do you mean running almost a marathon every day for almost a week? Yes, and you're not going to feed your runners? No, they're going to be self-sufficient. After several visits in 2010, they came around to the idea, and then we realized that they were right, behind the idea of designing the course and putting the race together. So we decided, okay, we're going to focus on the area. And this is where the race will be held.
It's a really interesting little town. Like, it's historically a pioneer town and cowboys and ranching and everything. But it's also one of the most, like, in my opinion, one of the most jaw-dropping, like, picturesque towns on the planet. Like, it's small, it's quiet out there, and it's like almost like it's like iconic American West, where even though you're in a town, you still feel like you're in a very remote area, and like the red cliffs right there and the dark skies. It's really a beautiful place. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. Something about the red rocks.
Well, we fell in love with it when we arrived there in 2010 and started to really explore the area and try to figure out whether we thought putting a 170-mile race together and understanding the complexity of the design and the logistics, we got to know the people. And so, both the place itself is incredibly beautiful, and it's really, a really cool town to be in. But the people are really nice as well. We call our race a self-supported race, but the people in Kanab are very self-sufficient themselves. They've had to be over the last couple of 100 years because they've been so far away from anywhere else. So the community really supports each other, and we like that feature of the community. So we've actually owned a house there for 10 years now, and we fell in love with Kanab itself.
Yeah, it's like coming home every time. It's a second home for us now.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people feel the same way about it, where maybe they go there just once or twice and they experience Zion and then all the other amazing stuff nearby. But then when you come back, it is very welcoming. Like, all the people there are just very friendly, like you're saying, and it's just a really nice culture where it's definitely like almost like the most, I don't know what the right word is, but like as like small town America as you can get as far as the culture goes. Everybody's really nice, just friendly, wants to help you out. Like, if you were out on a run and bonked, somebody would probably come pick you up and not think twice about it or whatever. Like, people are just very friendly, and it's a really interesting place to have a race versus like a giant like tourist destination where you're just another number. There you're actually like, you're more than a number. You're actually like a person there that people know.
Exactly.
That's right.
And actually our participants, sorry.
Go ahead, Tess.
No, I was just going to say, every year when our participants arrive in Kanab, they immediately feel that. The town is like expecting the G2G runners to arrive, and so they arrive, and then they go to the restaurants and the supermarkets, and they go, "Oh, you're with G2G? Yes, yeah, we are." So they feel like, oh, they're immediately made to feel at home.
Another reason we decided to go ahead with Kanab was it was important getting local support for the creation of the race and logistics. Creating a 171-mile race in a contiguous fashion all the way across the desert is quite an undertaking. We had to, in the end, get permits from 4 federal entities, 1 state authority, and permissions from multiple private landowners. And that's quite an undertaking. And if we didn't have help from certain members of the local community, we wouldn't have been able to do it. As simple as that. So it was nice to see very early on in the process that the local community, the community leaders really got behind us, and they shared our vision for creating this race really in the middle of nowhere that they'd never really considered before. And so they pretty much adopted us. We became these foreign adoptees in this town. And, they then basically said, well, we love this race as well now. This is something that we look forward to on an annual basis. And it's a way for us to show off our beautiful backyard, because, one of the things they like to talk about is that they're in the center of these amazing national parks of Zion, Bryce, the Grand Canyon. And so here's the Grand to Grand Ultra as another way to put Kanab on the map. And now they're on the map of the ultra stage racing world, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's a unique place, and it's cool. The community and all the agencies there are very welcoming of this. And it's obviously good financially for the community, but also it's a family atmosphere. So it's like everybody benefits from a little bit of money in the economy, but also just like the fun aspect of it. I think people get really excited about the race, and you'll see random people on the course sometimes, like whether or not they're supposed to be there, they're out there cheering runners on because they find it awesome that people are running for multiple days. Because like in their eyes, like a marathon is like, wow, that's a huge accomplishment, which it is. Then when you do that day in and day out, and then you have a 50-mile day thrown in, people get really excited about it, and they get just really like pumped to like go out and do things themselves. It's like really exciting. Yeah. Tess, let's and Colin, let's talk a little bit about just the town in general. We're going to deviate from the script here for a second, or our notes we made, I should say. You mentioned the restaurants a few minutes ago, and like I think that's something that's really cool about Kanab is they've definitely like upped their restaurant and food game. Because when I first went to Kanab years ago, growing up, it was more of like you just have like the grocery stores and like a McDonald's. There wasn't really any like food options, but now there's a lot of really good restaurants, and even today, I'm still blown away that in Kanab, which is this remote little town, there are some very, very good restaurants for everybody, for vegans, vegetarians, meat eaters, for everybody. And like, it's not like you're going to just go to the middle of nowhere and just have a hamburger that's from Costco or something. It's like an actual proper meal. And it's amazing.
Yeah. It's a lot has changed since we first came to Kanab in 2010, and now it's 2024. The range of really great restaurants, not just restaurants, but just really good quality. It's amazing. We love it. So we always say now Kanab is no longer just a through town, like one of those towns where if you blink you miss it. Not anymore. It's a town that's really worth staying at, and you make it your base. To visit all the other amazing national parks around. So we always recommend it. And in fact, a lot of our runners, once they realize that, they end up coming back and bringing their families for holidays. They go, oh wow, I definitely want to come back here. I want my wife to see this, my children, and then from Kanab, then we'll go and hike. Go down the Grand Canyon or see Zion and go to Bryce. So it's a great thing. No, we're really pleased that Kanab has grown up with G2G.
Yeah, and I can just add to that. I mean, there's actually a good range of restaurants. Not only do you have some really nice high-end restaurants, which are excellent. There's some cool, funky little coffee shops where the coffee's good. They make all their homemade produce. It's not like a Starbucks where it's all kind of mass manufactured, but it's actually the owner of the coffee shop who makes their own muffins, makes their own bagels, makes their own scones, all this sort of stuff, and that's really kind of cool. And basically, if you go to the coffee shop, one of our favorite ones we go to, if you haven't, they run out of food by sort of 11 o'clock in the morning. So she'll have made the food the night before and that morning, and then it's all gone. And that's kind of cool. It's we like that.
Yeah, the old adage of the early bird gets the worm. So wake up early, get a scone and a coffee, and go train, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
There's an amazing bakery that you think, you think you were in Europe. I mean, the croissants are amazing. So yeah, unbelievable to get that in Kanab.
Yeah, what is the name of that bakery? I'm spacing the name right now.
um,
Is it Kanab Creek
is it
Bakery or something like that?
Kanab Creek? I think
There's
it's
Cab
Kanab
Creek.
Creek. Yeah.
The one I prefer to go to is Jakey Lay. So she's a local lady
Yeah.
who's been basically
Jakey's
has her own
great.
thing.
Yeah.
We like to support her.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually ran into her. I was running in the Grand Canyon. Sorry, this is very off topic, but I was running on the North Rim Trail in the Grand Canyon, and she was down there, and we just started talking. And she's like, "Oh, why are you here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm helping out at Grand de Grand." And she's like, "Oh, no way! Like, I have this bakery, and I support them, and all these things."
Yeah.
And she was a very
Yeah.
friendly person, but it is a very like European style bakery, not like this fake pseudo like whatever European. It's like
Yeah.
very European,
Mm.
and it's really good food. It's an amazing place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's Kanab Creek Bakery. Oh, so you mean Marjorie? You met Marjorie because
Oh,
she
is it
works
Marjorie?
at
Yeah.
the. Yes, she
Mm.
works at the Grand Canyon as a guide. I think a few days a week. Yeah, it's amazing.
She
Yeah, we
volunteers
love
for
it.
the national park.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, now we're
Hmm.
just becoming the Kanab tourism board right now, but it really is an amazing town.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's a very unique place, and I've always just had really good experiences there. Whether it's just kind of the classic, you're at the grocery store, you're at a restaurant, everyone's very friendly, and they like having people there and just showing off their amazing area. It's like when you're proud of where you're from and your culture, and you want people to experience it
Yeah.
as well. And it is a unique
Mhm.
place too. I think a lot of people that come in from a city don't really like kind of understand that, where you can go in there and you just feel like you're at home and you're welcomed by people who don't know you. Maybe they'll never know your name, but they'll remember you, and they want to give you a good experience and show you how amazing
Yeah.
the area they live in is. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit though about the unique challenges of Grand de Grand, because it is a unique place, like we were talking about. Like the terrain is unique, where it's a high desert, and it changes drastically over the course of like the 171 miles, which you would expect, right?
Mm.
Like a race that's that long
Hmm.
is going to have a lot of
Mm.
challenges, and they're not all just going to be exactly the same, because the environments and the elevation change dramatically every day.
Well, when we created the race, we wanted to be true to the format of having 6 stages. The first 5 stages of which are either around a marathon or slightly longer, including the long stage, which is a double marathon. So by comparison around the world, it's one of the longest stage races at 171 miles. So that's one of the challenges that is out there. In fact, it's about 30 kilometers longer than the Marathon des Sables stage race in the Sahara Desert, which is the sort of granddad of all these races. It's at higher elevation, so at an average of 2,000 meters. That really, gives an issue for people, and so we encourage people to come out a few days early to acclimatize. Most people are coming from sea level, so that's something that people need to deal with. And it's hot during the day. It can get up to around 30 degrees or mid 80s Fahrenheit during the day, and then a big temperature variation for the evening. So it can get down to single digit centigrade, so around 35 to 40 Fahrenheit at nighttime. So for most people, they underestimate the high desert, which has got that large temperature variation most throughout the whole day. It's got really tough desert terrain with a lot of sand. So, that's a real challenge for people because of the sandy conditions on much of it. We have sand dunes, but even without the sand dunes, there's quite a lot of sand there. And so, people should not underestimate it. It's a tough race, and we have over the years had a drop DNF rate of around 20 to 23%. So it does mean that 1 in 5 people won't make it. But there's usually very good reasons for why they don't make it. They haven't sorted out their nutrition in advance, so they haven't figured out what to eat and eat it under duress, or maybe they haven't been able to look after their feet. It's important that they deal with hot spots when they start to appear, etc. So if people prepare well and do a reasonable amount of training, they will finish. But they need to be. They can't just turn up. They've got to be prepared to get it done. being self-supported. This year we do have a supported category, but traditionally it's been a self-supported race, and so people need to get their pack weight at the smallest level possible. So this year we've introduced a rule that people cannot have a pack weight more than 12 kilos at the start, excluding water, and that's to help them make sure they don't carry too much. For the supported category, we did it through popular opinion. There were a lot of people saying they wanted to do the race, but they wanted to do it in a supported way. The organisation will carry the vast bulk of their weight from camp to camp. So it's a good way for somebody to do it who's never done a self-supported stage race before, to actually do the exact same course. Everything else, all the rules are exactly the same, except we will carry most of your pack weight from camp to camp. So it's still tough to get it done, but it just, if it's your first time, it's a good way for you to be introduced to it and still have exactly the same experience. You're sleeping in the same tents, you're with everyone, you're starting the same day, your cutoff times are exactly the same, so everything is exactly the same. So I think that's a reasonable description of what the challenges are for the week that you're facing.
Yeah, a lot of unique challenges compared to, say, like a 200-mile race, which are becoming very popular here in the States, or maybe something like Tour de France in Europe. Like, these races are very hard and very challenging, but they are logistically very different than a stage race. Is that one of your pups, Colin?
Well,
Yeah, she's making a lot of noise.
It's coming up for their dinner time, and the two of them are fighting in the background. So they kind of go nuts at the dinner time. Hey, this one's Elsa. She's a 4-year-old miniature schnauzer.
You don't need an alarm clock with these two. You just once they start bothering you, you look at your watch and go like, "Oh yes, it's dinner time."
Yeah, you got to make sure they eat a big dinner because they may never eat again. So it could be their last dinner.
Yeah, yeah, that's what dogs think.
Exactly. Yeah, Colin, that should be your profile picture now, just you and Elsa.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yeah, like the Grand to Grand and just stage racing in general is such a unique format because like I've never ran a stage race in that regard. Like I've done multi-day things, but you have to plan so differently for things because like you have a blister day one, or if you're running a 50K and need a blister, you can kind of run through it and it's miserable, but you can do it. But you have to do that for 5 more days. That can really like turn into a problem. So just like these little things add up, and we've done other podcasts about that where they're talking about food and gear planning and stuff. And I think that part is actually kind of fun, like to sit down and look at the unique challenges of a race like this, and then go through and like plan appropriately for it, and kind of see how good your planning is and see how it plays out on race day or race week in this instance.
Yeah, that's what I used to love about. I mean, I've done a few staged races, and that's the part I loved. Just I mean, I did a lot of trial and error. There were no Facebook groups when I was doing them. So I just had to make a lot of mistakes and learn along the way, right? There's a lot of trial and error, but it's fun. It was fun. It's
I think
nice to work it out.
Definitely. And I think in the podcast we did with Sarah Lavender Smith, or maybe it was Trevor Davenport, but we talked about that where you need to be testing your gear and everything, because just because it works for you, Tess, like it was with what's her name? I'm spacing.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, it was with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth? Yeah.
Yeah, she was talking about how like it's important to plan your gear, but then test it, because like a pack that works for you, Tess, won't work for me or for Colin, just because our bodies are slightly different and our nutritional requirements are a little bit different as well. So training with those things, maybe not every day, but like go on like your longer run and kind of figure things out, because if you can mitigate an issue in training that doesn't affect you on race day, that's just a huge thing. It's going to make your week a lot better. But it's just those little things that add up. They don't really take extra time either. You can just do it on your normal training run, and you can go through a lot of potential problems that way.
Yeah, because there's a lot of advice out there, but it's really up to you to pick and choose what works for you. And the only way to do that is to practice, just train with it. I didn't know any of that. I didn't even know that I had to actually separate my my food per day. I just put everything together, and every night I took everything out of my backpack. It was quite a mess around me, Yeah,
Yeah, back in your
it's
amateur
you just
days.
yeah,
Well,
you
it's,
just
yeah,
learn
well,
the hard
we,
way.
we we learned from that, and that's why our website is very informative. We've got a blog that we update on the website. We've got the podcast that you're doing, Derek. We've got
Mm,
Zoom meetups where we do presentations. We bring in experts in certain areas. We're very active in social media and Facebook and Instagram, where we're continually posting advice and people can use the search functions. So there's a lot of information there that
mm,
really answers all the questions that people have, which just didn't exist 10 years ago. So there's really no
yeah.
excuse for somebody to try and take it on now, because the information's there. You can't exactly go on
Hmm.
to Amazon and get a book about it, but if you
Hmm.
go to all the stuff that we supply, then you'll be well
Yeah.
educated in what you need to do.
I'm actually
Yeah,
getting a few emails from participants running this year. They are actually looking forward to these podcasts that we're doing, and they're hanging on to every word and learning from it, which is good.
oh, that's a lot of pressure, Tess. Thank you.
Ah, I know.
No, it's
Over to
good
you,
people are.
Derek.
It's good people are listening because we definitely like talk about a lot of details that like are maybe
Mm,
mentioned on the website, but not. You can't really just always mention something in text, and it's a little bit different when you talk about it in person or on a podcast because you talk about all
mm,
these little things that, and it's something you can like listen to also. Like if you're driving to work, you can listen to a podcast
yeah,
versus like having
yeah,
to sit down and read or something. And which reading's great.
mm,
Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. Like you should still read,
yeah,
but it's just a good way to like keep your mind focused on the event and to learn some things
yeah,
casually and not take that
yeah.
part too seriously. But
Or when you're doing your long run, just put it
yeah,
on, and yeah, that's what I tend to do.
yeah,
Mm,
exactly. So speaking
yeah.
of that, let's talk about the philosophy kind of Grand to Grand, like kind of like the participants, the environment, and just the community. We kind of touched on some of this stuff
Hmm.
already, but let's kind of talk about
Hmm.
like that philosophy that you guys have.
Yeah, absolutely. So our G2G philosophy covers three things. Firstly, to our participants. Secondly, to the environment. And then thirdly, to the local community. So the G2G course covers a huge area, a beautiful area between the Grand Canyon and leading up to the base of Bryce National Park. And basically, for our participants, our aim is to allow them to actually enjoy this spectacular beauty of the course, but do it in a safe and responsible manner. So we would like to keep them safe. For us, the safety of our participants, our staff, our volunteers is our number one priority. We have a medical director who runs a team of doctors who are all experts in wilderness medicine. We have one of these doctors at all our checkpoints, and at camps we have a medical tent. We are also in very close touch with the Kane County Search and Rescue Team, and so they know exactly how many runners are on the course every day of the week. They know exactly how many have DNF'd and how many are still active. So yeah, they keep a close eye on all our participants. Secondly, G2G is an environmentally friendly race, and right from the start, since our first edition in 2012, we have decided that we are going to minimize our impact on the environment by generating the least amount of waste. So since the first edition, we have never used plastic bottles for our water. At great expense and a lot of effort, we carry our water in our checkpoints and to our camps. we ration the amount of water that we give to our participants. It's sufficient enough for them to hydrate and rehydrate their meals in the morning and the evening. I think by doing this, it teaches our participants to learn how to value and use their water wisely, and also makes you realize. I think it makes them realize at the end of the week that you could actually survive on much less than you think you will. We also have a leave no trace policy on the trails, so that in this regard we have very strict rules about littering, which could be subject to penalties. And at our race briefing, we always explain to our runners why we want to do this, because our permitting hinges a lot on keeping the trails litter free. And thirdly, is our philosophy to always support the local community of Kanab. So almost all our expenses actually is spent on local businesses and on the town itself. Each year we donate 2 local scholarships to deserving Kanab locals. So they get a complimentary entry to run the Grand to Grand Ultra. And in exchange, the condition is they fundraise for a local cause. And for G2G 2024, the recipient is the Kane County Youth Coalition. We also work very closely with Best Friends Animal Society. And for those who are not familiar with Best Friends, it is the largest no-kill sanctuary in America. And the G2G course actually runs through the sanctuary in Kanab. Best Friends are very supportive of the race, and they very kindly, every year, supply the vans that we use to transport our runners from Kanab to our Camp 1 in Grand Canyon. And again, they pick them up from the finish line on day 7 and back to Kanab. And so therefore, Colin and I are very pleased to donate 6 complimentary bibs to any supporter of Best Friends who they run G2G, and they can raise money for the animals.
Awesome. Yeah, those are very good organizations. Best Friends, I think, is pretty well known. And then Kane County Youth Coalition is very important as well. So it's cool to see like the race involved in the local community and not just kind of coming in and taking money and running like a lot of events have done in the past.
Yeah. Well, just I think, the circus coming to town.
Yeah. Over the last 10 years, between us having our local scholarships raise money locally for different organizations and our participants, we've probably, G2G has been responsible for raising money for over 100 charities during that time. And the last time I looked at it, it was well over $2 million that had been raised for all of those causes.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I guess thinking about that, like the race has been around for like more than a decade now. So it's a lot of time to fundraise and support the local community. And whether it's a local nonprofit or just direct dollars to businesses there, like the grocery stores and the gear shops. Like I know everyone really appreciates that funding. Thinking about how like the race has been around for so long, Colin, and you mentioned earlier that you made a couple changes. There's there's a supported version and a self-supported version now. So let's talk about that. Like, where did that idea come from, and why? I know you alluded to it previously, but let's go in a little more depth here.
Okay, yeah. I mean, traditionally we were when we created the race, it was all about it being a self-supported ultramarathon stage race. And of course, that's an element of it which makes it really tough because you've got to do all the preparation and you're carrying a pack on your back for the week. But we were getting, over the last 3 or 4 years, getting feedback from people saying, we'd really love to do your race, but we're just not sure. We've never done a stage race before. We've never done a race as challenging as yours, over 171 miles. Is there any way we could do it where it's supported? So Tess and I made the decision last year to run a pilot scheme where we had our first supported runner come in and see if that would work. And we were pleased to see that it did work. And what we've done with the supported category now is basically give people exactly the same experience as the self-supported runners. They stay in the same tents, the same camps. They start off each day, the cutoff times, they go to all the checkpoints are exactly the same. Getting to camp each night at the same cutoff time is identical, same ration of water, etc. They're still required to have the same mandatory equipment, and they're also limited to 12 kilos of food and gear. The only difference being is that we will transport the bulk of their pack for them between camps. So it means on the course each day, their pack weight is going to be significantly less. So, for example, for the self-supported category on day one, they will have a maximum of 12 kilos plus the weight of 1.5 liters of water. So, say 13.5 kilos, that would be the maximum weight they would carry on day one. But their pack weight will reduce during the week as they eat through their food. Whereas with the supported runners, probably it'll be somewhere around, maybe 3 or 4 kilos might be their weight on day one. If you add up all of the mandatory equipment that they're required to have with them on the course, there'll be a lot of it. Most of the food will be carried for them between camps. They won't need things like their sleeping bag and sleeping pad with them on their course. That will be carried for them. So they really benefit. They get exactly the same experience, but they're probably carrying about a third of the weight each day. And we're pleased to see that that's resonated well, because we've had so far this year, probably about 10% of people who've signed up so far are actually doing it in the supported category. And we are being flexible this year. What we're saying to people is, please sign up. And if you want to move from one to the other category, we'll let people do that at no cost, provided we get enough notice in order to do that.
Nice. Yeah, it's really cool to see how you guys have changed and evolved a little bit over the years, because it is it makes it a very different type of race when you go in either supported or self-supported. Just the planning and the packing is a little bit different, but some people, maybe they just can't handle that much weight, but they still want to go see the area and run through the area. Then others want to have that extra challenge of running with the pack and the logistical aspects that come with it. And I think both ways are a great way to experience the area and to run the race. One's not necessarily better than the other, but it's kind of what suits you at this point in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's logistically, they're pretty similar, because you still are limited in terms of the pack weight. We're not allowing people to carry, an extra 10 or 20 pounds. We're not going to do that. So basically your pack weight's going to be the same, except we're going to be carrying it for them between camps. And the contents of their bags will be the same as well. They're still going to have the 17 pieces of mandatory equipment. They're still going to need, minimum 2,000 calories a day. So there won't be much in terms of the content of the bags. They'll be pretty much the same. It's just that we'll be helping them out by carrying it from camp to camp.
They will still have the challenge of deciding what to take. Okay, you may not be carrying that on your back the whole week, but you come back to camp and you still have to be eating, something that you've practiced with. So otherwise, you come back and you didn't really pick the right food, then you could still struggle to finish, right? So the challenge is still there. It's really just less weight during the day that you're on the course. But it still makes it for a challenging race.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It's a great way for people to just have pretty much the identical experience. But if they've never done a self-supported stage race before, it's a way for them to test it out and take it on.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think variety is a spice of life, right? So maybe if you've done it self-supported one year, you could do it again supported and see how different that is. Because like you're saying,
We
it is
have, yeah.
similar, but it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Mhm.
somebody doing that. Yeah, he's
Oh,
done
nice.
G2G a few years ago, self-supported, and now coming back supported. Yeah.
Experiences because
Mhm.
yeah, it's like they're the same but different. So I think that'd be really interesting to talk about.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, cool guys, let's wrap it up here. That was really interesting to hear more about the race and just to chat about Kanab. Like I know we all love the area, so it's fun
Yeah,
to
we
talk
do.
about it and and kind of get ready for the race in a few months. Well, 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, it'll all be around the corner before we know it. I know.
Yep. All right. Was there anything else you guys want to touch on before we close up here?
No, except that we're really excited for this year. Looking
Awesome.
Yeah,
forward
no,
to going back to Kanab.
it's we were hit pretty hard by the pandemic, and we had to cancel the race for 2 years in a row. So this would have been our 13th
13th. Yeah.
edition coming up, but it's actually our 11th edition because we had to cancel for 2 years. So we're really very excited about building up the race again to where it was before the pandemic happened, and getting all our international runners back into Kanab because they were prevented from coming into North America for almost 2 years. So we're really excited. We always love to see people come from all over the world: Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South America. So it's exciting to see. We've, I think, over the last 10 years had over 1,000 people come from 57 countries. So that's one aspect I'm really excited about seeing again for this year. So we'll get there. We're excited.
And we'll
Yeah.
see you there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to go back and spend a week in Kanab. It honestly is like a highlight of the year to camp out in the desert and to meet all these new people. And
Yeah.
I'm fairly introverted myself, but I love meeting all these people from around the world because you see, like you're saying, Colin, you'll get people from, say, Australia or New Zealand or wherever, which these places are so far away and remote compared to like, where I am, anyways.
Yeah.
And it's fun just to see, like, and just meet
Mhm.
different people from different cultures. And in the end, you just really do realize how everybody is very similar. Like, we all have pretty similar values and we love just hanging out and having a good time. So it's always one of the highlights of the year just to meet new people and to
Yeah.
keep those connections going throughout the years.
Absolutely. And we have a few new countries this year. So that's exciting.
Oh, nice. So what are the new countries?
I think we have one from Israel and Estonia, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Colin. Thanks, Tess. I appreciate the time. And I know you both are busy and you have dogs to feed and take care of. Like
Yeah,
they're probably ready
dinner
for their
time.
dinner now. So
Thank you, Derek.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Derek.
Talk to
Yeah,
you
thanks.
soon.
Appreciate it. And good luck with the rest of the podcast.
yeah, thank you. We'll talk to you guys
Yeah.
soon.